Welcome to How to Rank It. This is a show where we take a genre or subgenre of movies, watch them in order, and rank them by a certain set of criteria. Each month we add another movie into the pile of compared movies, and eventually we end up with a nice list of the best, worst, and meh movies. Hit that subscribe button and decide over the next couple months whether or not you like this idea. Come and join the fun. Right now we are ranking every Disney movie in order and deciding which one is the best using the SMACT system, which is a very pretentious way of saying we're judging these movies on storyline, music, animation, character, and technology. Come and join us and let's get ranking together. Hello everyone, it's your favorite liberal snowflake, and by liberal, I mean libertarian, and by snowflake, I mean it gets cold here in the Hoosier state. Today, I have a treat for you. It's smart, it's funny, it's got cute characters, it has beautiful music, it's horrible, it's stupid, it has clunky storyline and terrible songs, and every human looks like a rat. It is Oliver and Company. Oliver and Company is the last movie of the Bronze Age, and, well, let's just do a real fast recap. Oliver is given away for free in a box. Oliver meets a dog. The dog is very street smart. We see the dogs from Lady and the Tramp, and they shoot a music video. Dodger thinks he gets away from the kitten who was following him. We arrive at a boat in the Hudson. Cats? Is that you? Extremely annoying caricatures get in an argument, and another annoying caricature arrives on a boat to take care of the animals. The bum will be killed if he doesn't give a man some money, so, like a boss, he sits down and takes a nap. He sends the dogs out to do his dirty work for him, threatening them with no food along the way.
Dead men do not buy dog food, so big smiles and get out there and fetch.
We meet Jenny, a little girl who has rich parents who have neglected her. Her driver hits one of the dogs while Tito and Oliver get in the limo. Hijinks ensue, and Oliver goes home with the rich little girl. We go to the little girl's city townhouse, and it magically transforms into a huge suburban house when she walks through the front door. Disney magic. Oliver is stolen by his friends, and the Mexican dog has consent issues.
Remember me by baby.
Apparently, when a girl says no, it really means yes.
Oh, I think she likes me, man.
The villain tries to kill the little girl who he is using for ransom. How can you use her for ransom if she's already dead? I have no idea. There is no way any of them survives this. Jenny's neglectful parents are still neglectful, and it's supposed to be a good thing when they come home.
You're back tomorrow?
Nope. It would be better if they just stay in Bermuda or wherever the heck they are. Also, we get this.
Hey, you're okay for a cat.
But remember,
A cat is not a dog.
this cat might be okay to you, but according to Andrew Lloyd Webber, you will never be okay to that cat.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
This storyline is not very good. I kind of thought it would be hard to mess up this tale. Obviously, the story of Oliver is a pretty simple one, but damn, I did not like this story. And the more I thought about this movie, the more I realized why I didn't like this storyline. It's contrived. Throughout this movie, these characters don't feel like characters. They feel like stereotypes designed to get you from one story beat to the next. While we might find characters from Lady and the Tramp or characters from The Lion King in our Disney theme parks, we will never find Oliver and Company because these characters were never designed to be appealing or even to be enjoyable. They were designed to use as much shorthand to get the point across and move this story along as quickly and uneventfully as possible. As usual, whether or not I like this movie rides on whether it has good characters or not, but we'll talk about this movie's character development in character. For storyline, I give this movie 19th place out of 27 movies reviewed so far.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
The music of this movie has three parts: the background music, the pop ballads, and the Broadway soundtrack. The background music and the Broadway soundtrack are wonderful,
Perfection becomes meaningful.
but the pop ballads are possibly the worst part of this movie in any regard. The problem with the pop ballads in this movie is that they are generic. The songs being sung could take place in any universe and under almost any situation, but this movie postures itself as a musical and sets you up to understand more about the characters than just having fun songs. So when you have a song like Why Should I Worry at the beginning of this movie, it leaves you feeling unsatisfied, like you've eaten candy for dinner.
Why should I worry? Why should I care?
When you want to understand these characters but are given light fluff that explains very little about them, it really doesn't help. For a while, I thought this movie might go down the route of having the atmosphere create the music for this movie, kind of like they did recently on the live-action Annie, which isn't a good movie, but it at least did one song pretty well. That is something creative that I thought might make this music more appealing and necessary for the tale. However, it doesn't take long before you realize that much of this music is just old B-sides set to a new story. That being said, about halfway through this movie, the tone shifts and the music becomes much more Broadway-esque. I wonder if this has to do with the changing atmosphere at the Disney company in the 80s. Unbeknownst to the Disney animators, this would be the last film of the Bronze Age, and the company had set itself up for a great amount of growth throughout the decade of the 90s. One of those growth moves was the encouragement of musicals throughout the Renaissance, especially in its animated films. I wonder if this movie was planned to have a kind of canned soundtrack, but halfway through its production, they decided to take it in a more Broadway direction. I have no proof of that though. It's just something I wonder about given the changes in the studio at the time. However, whether intentional or not, those changes create a movie that feels a bit uneven between the first act and the second act. It also does create a more dramatic atmosphere when Bette Midler's character enters the screenplay, and who knows, that may have been intentional. I imagine it was. Regardless, the film feels a bit uneven or awkwardly paced. It's certainly not my favorite music of this era or of Disney in general, but it's also not the worst that I've heard. I give this music of Oliver and Company 15th place out of 27 movies reviewed so far.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
The very first scene of this movie sets up the backgrounds to be absolutely beautiful. They're sketchy and blurry and have a bit of a different style to them than past movies. But then the foreground animation bursts its way onto the scene, and the dichotomy is what I can only describe as visual whiplash.
Stop that racket!
What happened?
Shut up, you little rodent.
Our eyes have become accustomed to seeing something beautiful and artistic, but what we are seeing in the foreground looks like a second-rate television cartoon. The people in particular are some of the ugliest humans I have ever seen, each one of them grotesquely skewed for this caricatured world. This might have worked if the backgrounds began in the same style, if all the buildings were very grotesque and different shaped. It might have worked in that case. However, as this movie stands, it seems that this movie was poised to maybe only see the legs of humans, like on Lady and the Tramp, until it realized that it needed to make faces also, and apparently the animators needed to relearn how to draw faces, which I suppose makes sense. It'd been a while since they had humans in their movies at this point, or at least main characters of humans in their movies. This animation does include a couple tricks I will talk about more in technology. It's not particularly beautiful animation, although the foreground and the background might be good enough on their own if you were to separate them both. It's just simply ugly though when you put them both together. I give this animation 21st place out of 27 movies reviewed so far. I think the animators tried harder on Oliver and Company than the lazily edited and produced Robin Hood, but there's no way this animation is more beautiful than Sleeping Beauty. Not by a long stretch.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
The characters in this movie are all extreme two-dimensional stereotypes. For instance, the bum is never anything more than a bum. From the moment we see this character, we know exactly what he is. He is a slacker who gets his dogs to do all his work for him.
To do your duty, I want you to keep one thing in mind. Dead men do not buy dog food, so big smiles and get out there and fetch.
He is homeless and he seems to have some sort of substance abuse, probably alcohol, given his appearance and the appearance of his home. Lives in an abandoned ship that has a man who is riding him for money that he apparently owes. In a better movie, we may have learned either through the story or even better through small details that this bum was once an incredible businessman who fell on hard times and had a connection with this horrible villain. In the end, our protagonist could use his insider knowledge and business acumen to bring the slumlord to ruin. But this is not a better movie. Instead of creative storytelling and characters that are deepened throughout the storytelling, this tale opts to tell the most flat story and paper-thin characters that it possibly can. The same can be said for all the characters in this movie. Bette Midler is spoiled, Tito is Mexican and follows all the worst Mexican stereotypes, the Great Dane is just a big, stupid, giant jock. As a matter of fact, I just don't really like any of the poorer characters. And I feel really bad saying this, but the only time I liked this movie was during the scenes between the little girl and Oliver. Even their relationship was not particularly complex, but it does have some substance to it. We at least know that the little girl is a very sad, lonely little girl who is often neglected by her very rich parents. That at least sets up a bit of a conflict for her. And Oliver is also a main character whose main motivation throughout the movie is simply looking for acceptance from someone to care about him. Between these two characters, you can see how they help each other and their motivations are very well aligned together. We as the audience know that these characters need what each other can give. However, this does make me feel a little bit like an elitist watching this movie because I only like the characters who are rich. But the more I think about it, I am just against annoying characters. Poor people have character conflicts too, Disney. In fact, I think the problems of the poor are generally more relatable to the majority of Americans, or at least they're more relatable to Americans today. And the more I think about it, I wonder if the building prosperity of the 80s and 90s made people less understanding of the poorer classes. Even just a cursory look at the media in the late 80s shows a world where everyone was depicted as wealthy. Maybe we had a less than understanding view of the poor and downtrodden in this time period, which is why we preferred to watch the stereotypical poor. It's much easier to dismiss those who are less fortunate than us when we can view them as irresponsible, lazy, dismissive, or straight up evil. That being said though, this movie also shows the extremely rich as both unloving and straight up heartless. The little girl's parents are absolutely neglectful, not even coming back for her own birthday.
Jenny, I'm afraid your father and I won't be able to make it.
And the rich man who holds a bum hostage for some money is pure evil. This story is a story of rich versus poor, and it doesn't come down on rich being better or poor being better. We see that the best people are people who are not defined by their wealth. And both Oliver and this sweet little girl both match that description perfectly. This sweet little girl cares almost nothing about money or wealth. The most she interacts with material goods is by walking through her house. She cares about relationships. She does not care that her parents are making money. She cares that they are home with her to celebrate her birthday because she is a decent human being. As I think about it, we can also look through the lens of contemporary media to understand this film a bit better. The dad works too much trope was very prevalent throughout the 90s, especially in movies.
Why didn't somebody just shoot me in the head?
Bang! Bang!
Will everybody just shut up?
I'm sorry.
And I guess that makes sense because as money becomes commonplace with building wealth, Material possessions become less important. Why do I care about things when I know that those things will always be there? In the end, this movie becomes very predictable because of the character stereotypes that serve as its foundation, which means when interesting dynamics happen, like when the bum decides to help the little girl, you know what's going to happen before it happens, and even internal choices are made very over the top for the sake of the audience understanding. This movie is about as subtle as a garlic sandwich. I give the characters in this movie 21st place out of 27 movies so far.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
As far as technology goes, there's very little amount of multiplane use at a couple of different times in the film. However, like I have said before, multiplane has become passé at this point. We're looking for CGI, and this movie does deliver on the stair scene when Bette Midler wakes up and walks down the stairs. Also, during the train scene, a little CGI helps make that scene feel more intense and like the characters' lives are really at stake. These CGI effects are very good, but I think they pale a little in comparison to The Great Mouse Detective. So, I give Oliver and Company 9th place out of 27 movies reviewed so far for technology.
Now it's always once upon a time in New York City.
This movie is a decent story about both the divide between the classes and unity between different types of people. It is a great concept for a Disney movie, and it has all the parts in place for a classic Disney movie, but it comes off amateurish, which is quite a thing for me to say running my own amateurish YouTube channel. It looks a lot more like a third-party animation studio made this than like a Disney studio. It's definitely not the best Disney movie in any way, but overall it's inoffensive. It wasn't particularly enjoyable, but it's a good, forgettable experience to burn about an hour and a half if that's what you're looking for. Nobody knew this movie was going to be the last movie of Disney's slump at the time, but I can definitely see the pieces of the Renaissance all coming together here. A movie based on a classic title turned into a musical with creative and imaginative setting. Little did we know that the next movie would completely turn around the Disney company and change its course well into the future. So, I give Oliver and Company 18th place out of 27 movies reviewed so far. Subscribe and tell your friends that we're starting the Renaissance movies soon. At this point, 90% of you who habitually watch my videos are not subscribed. So, just press the red button. It's free and easy. Go ahead and do it. Also, tell me what you think about Oliver and Company down in the comments below. Is this a classic to you, and what are your memories of it? Sound off in the comments and keep the conversations flowing. I love what you guys have to write, and I read all of them. Also, sorry, this is a re-upload, kind of. I mean, it's a new video, but it's a re-upload because somehow it got deleted off of YouTube, so this has been on before. So, I don't know. Tell me what you think. Thanks for joining today, and I'll see you again in another couple weeks. Too close. What are you stuck on? Double thing.